taking. Bring the meeting to order. Josh, if you'll take us on.
All right, so we are rolling into the water fund today and golf fund. I'd like to get into some revenues too. Hopefully we can get there. So we'll go ahead and start out with water operations. Jamie, do you mind coming up and leading us through this portion, please?
Morning, everybody.
Morning, Jamie.
Get some of my notes here, right? So I'm trying not to confuse y'all with this one this time and say everything's the same.
Oh.
So anyway, you can see where we requested on all the salaries and stuff that there is not much change there. So what was recommended is still the same this year as what was approved. So you got all your salaries, retirements, and all that stuff. It's just pretty basic in each department. So if it's okay, we can just skip on by that unless you got any questions about any of it. You can see what's been spent this year is pretty much on track. Uniforms, we budgeted $9,300. That was recommended by the manager. You can see we've spent only $37.94 of that, but usually at the end of the year, we usually try to go through with every employee and see what they need and just make a final push at the end of the year to keep them on into the new budget, busting it wide open. So,
Excuse me, just real quick. I am seeing a large jump in the retirement contribution. Is that just how we're allocating?
It is. There's also an increase in retirement contribution this year as well for everybody across the board. What is that percentage from last year? Tammy, do you know off the top of your head?
And that also includes the retirees insurance. The state calculates that into the retirement basis for the total, but it went up, I believe it's over 0.5% for general employees, and I think about the same amount for law enforcement officers.
And that's dictated by the state.
Yes.
It is. And, typically over the past, I guess a few years ago, that stayed flat for a while. And after they did some analysis, they determined there wasn't going to be enough money in the retirement system. So they started increasing those percentages across the board for everybody.
So you'll see on continuing education and training, that's been cut a little bit. Usually budget 2,000, cut it to 1,400. You can see there's only been 442 spent out of it. A lot of that's due to employee shortages and people not going to school, not ready to go to school, things of that nature. But we did keep 1,400. There's 500 for per diem and travel, which is pretty standard. Nothing in professional services and engineering. Professional services laboratory, that $8,000, that's where we have to do our samples. And we have to do them regularly, every month and send to the state to make sure our water's potable and clean. So that's what that's for. And you can see we're pretty much on track with $7,000 spent this year. Just a couple months ago. Other professional and technical services, we got $2,000 budgeted for that. I took some notes on that and looked through some of that stuff too to make sure I give you the right information, because this being a new system, and that's just what it is. It's for just other services that we may need. That's outside the norm. So we put $2,000 in there if we had to call an outside entity or something to help us with a leak or anything of that nature.
That's quite a drop from previous.
Yeah, that 11,900. So, and I think that's just because hopefully we don't need that service.
Well, hopefully.
That's right.
Yeah.
So trying to save money. Contract labor services. Let's see. Okay, we got $70,000 in there. You can see we've spent 55. That's for our water quality operator, which we have to have through the state. We have to have a person that has all the license and stuff that's capable of running our water system. So he's a contracted employee. So that's what's budgeted for him. Contract maintenance services, we got nothing in there for that. Contract services other, we got $1,000. And there's a note attached to it. That contract services other is for 811. That's our 811 where we call in locates, which we have to do to locate underground utilities. If contractors call in, we have to locate our water lines for them. Technology and software license. That's for things like GIS and SCADA mostly, and that's where we have our SCADA on all of our pumps and tanks and stuff, and they bill us individually. You can see where we're at 8,500 for this year. We usually budget 10,000, so we're on track there. Utilities and electricity is 105,000. You can see we're pushing 87,000, so that's for all the pump stations and everything we run that's electrical. Utilities and gas, that's for like backup generators and stuff at these sites that we got through propane. You can see we're at 679. We budgeted 900. Utilities, communications, 3,500. That is for the utilities and communications. That's for the automated meters. And for all that stuff, I see. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to give you some more information about what that's for.
During the utilities communications, be able to part of that, all available.
That's right. Cell phones, iPads, all that stuff that we have to have. Repair and maintenance for equipment's just what it is. We've got a backhoe, a couple of track hoes. That's so any of our equipment's related to water comes out of that. And you can see that we are actually spent over this year on our equipment maintenance. And of course, that's just what it is. It can be the nature of what the incident was, or it could be, aging out equipment where we're having to spend more money to keep it going. R&M vehicles, you can see that's pretty much the same. We budgeted 10,000 for that too, and we're a little bit over, and hopefully we won't go much over between now and July 1. R&M utility system, that's pretty much our water stock. You can see how much we spend a year on that. We budgeted 140. Because we're not sure, just trying to estimate inflation increases, where I can tell you some of our meter setters used to be $100, and now we're spending $300 a piece for them. And it seems like this stuff just continues to rise. So, anyway, there's 140 budgeted. We are at 101,000 right now, and when we make our orders, they're in orders of $5,000 to $7,000 at a time. So, because we go through that stuff pretty regularly. So, maintenance supplies and materials, 14.2. That's for tools, shovels. That's where we buy our chop saws, topsoil, anything related to water repairs. Specialty operating supplies, got nothing in there. Okay, purchase water.
You skip.
Did I miss one?
You skip chemical.
Chemicals and chemical products, that's just what it is. That's where we buy all our chemicals and everything we use to treat our water system. And you can see we budgeted 10,000, and it's a little bit over this year too. But because of some of the leaks and stuff we had, and I'll talk about that in just a minute, it could be the reason some of this stuff's went over and some of this stuff. So 365. So that I can relate that to that chemical stuff. So I know this past year we had one of our altitude valves got hung up, and we didn't know nothing about it because that altitude valve don't have SCADA on it. When that altitude valve hung up, it sent water to the other tank, and it pushed it out to overflow. That overflow goes down through the woods, and then when our water operator was up there checking everything, he just happened to catch it. And by that time, we'd run millions of gallons of water out onto the ground. So that could be part of that too. So we should be on track this year if nothing catastrophic happens. Non-capital equipment and furniture.
Jamie, excuse
Yes,
me.
sir.
The water purchase from outside entities, that City of Asheville,
Uh,
the water that we're
yes,
purchasing.
That's right, yes. That's what we're purchasing from Asheville. Non-capital equipment, and furniture. I took some notes on some of this stuff too, but let me see where I'm at on here. So the non-capital equipment and furniture, okay, that is when me and Josh looked it up yesterday. That's if we need new desks. That's if we need anything related to GIS. That could be new. That could also be a new cell phone, new iPads, anything of that nature. So we usually keep $5,000 in there for anything unexpected. Lease and rental equipment. We usually budget $5,000 for it. We cut it to $2,500 because we're usually pretty set and pretty efficient on all the equipment we have. But sometimes if we have to get some kind of special equipment, we have to rent from a rental company like Sunbelt or something. We have to keep some money in there for that. Fuel budgeted $12,000. We've spent almost $8,000 so far. Safety and compliance $500. That's just what it is for safety equipment. Miscellaneous expense. That's just what it is. It's $1,000. Could be backup for anything. Contingency, we put nothing. Capital outlay, we got $81,000. And what that's for, Josh, you'll click on that. So you got $14,000 for data collectors. What that is, these data collectors go on these poles for automated meters, which we have no backup parts for. We just got the pole and that's it. So we're going to try to get stocked up on the backup parts that we feel like we'll need if they go bad, and we can fix them ourselves. So we had 14 for the data collectors. 12,000 for chemical analyzers. These chemical analyzers are what goes in the pump houses and our well houses. When we pump the water, it's just what it is. It analyzes, and you can set your chemical feeds. And so these have to be replaced every so many years, and they're at the end of their life. So we would like to get those replaced and make sure we're putting the right amount of what we need to put into our system. So well 10 and 5 is
We just talked about
is
that.
where them will go. $6,500 to rebuild the PRB on Chapel Road. Years ago, we had a line blowout on the golf course. Because of some pressure issues, we put a PRB in a pit right there at the corner of the church on Chapel Road. It's ready to be rebuilt. It's just a rebuild kit. It's about $6,500 to do that. We can do that in-house without having to contract it out. So we'll get that rebuilt if it's approved.
That's a pressure reducing valve.
That's right. Yeah, pressure reducing valve. It also prevents backflow from water flowing backwards the way it's not supposed to go. So it does a multitude of things. So $15,000 for flow meters, for booster stations. I talked about that in my report the other night. I would like to go ahead and finish that out where we could really hone down, our pressure zones in town and figure out where our biggest water losses is that, and focus on that and look at making those repairs as necessary. So that's what those flow meters would be for. Booster stations, 33,500. Okay, the 33,000. Then we're going to booster stations. $33,500 is for a ground penetrating radar. What that does is just an upgraded version of our old line locates that we use for 811. But the good thing about this updated technology is if you've got the person out there locating the lines, this thing will connect with our GIS. So anything they can download from in the field from that ground penetrating radar and download it onto our GIS map. So it's pretty neat technology, and it's very much updated from what we have now. And then if you go to capital on lines, capital outlay for lines, we've got some projects in there. Black Mountain Estates water line, $100,000. What that's for is the line in Black Mountain Estate where you turn in, you go up above Phyllis Parker's house. If you know Phyllis Parker, we've had several blowouts there in the past several years. And that line was put in years ago. It's not a ductile iron line. It's very thin PVC line. And when it was put in, when we dig these leaks out, we find that when it was backfilled, they push rocks in on it. And if you'll remember when I was telling you about the ground shifting, over time, this line's bursting. And, you know, we have to turn it in on our insurance. And the last time we had to do a lot of work at Phyllis's house because of it, because it comes off the mountain and just the path of travel it takes ends up in her backyard. So what I'd like to do with that money is replace that line where we've had all that trouble and replace it all up to the switchback where Pinnacle turns back and replace it in ductile iron line. We should never have that problem again. The $200,000 would be to finish out the toll road, which I mentioned in my report the other night about how it's an old AC line, needs to be replaced. We replaced part of it, you know, this year in ductile iron line. This $200,000 should finish it out. And then that would be a project that was complete, that I'd be proud to complete, because that line's probably 80 to 100 years old, if not older, and could blow at any time. And it's a big line, and if it does, it could cause a lot of damage. So that's what those funds are for. And then on capital for vehicles, I had put in there for an F-450. That is for a new water bus, which what a water bus is. It's our utility truck that carries all of our parts, all of our repairs, all of our tools. It's an 08 model. It's one of the first gen trucks that come out. And it's twin turbo, and it is a nightmare, and it is on its last leg. And it not only looks rough, but it's rough. It needs to be replaced. And like I say, it's 2008 model. So this would be to upgrade that. This is a little heavier truck, a little more robust truck by half a ton. So, you know, as we grow, we get more water parts, we carry more materials. So I'd like to step it up just a notch to, you know, to a little bit bigger truck. And that would help too if we had to put a Traco behind it or something. You know, it would help offset that weight. The other vehicle's a F-250. That's just what it is. It's just to replace a 2011 truck that we have. There again, that was another first gen truck from Ford, and they've had several recalls on those trucks. And they're just outdated, and they're causing us some maintenance expense. And they are working. We use them every day. But like I say, in my experience, they're ready for replacement and at the end of their life. So that's what that's for under the vehicles. And then
That's gonna be confusing. So this $250,000 is a transfer from the water fund into the capital project fund for the AMI meters to continue that project and get those finished out. We're still gonna have we've got about $600,000 left in meters to buy. So my goal would be to use $250 from the water fund and then use at least $300,000 from our system development fee capital reserve to put into that meter project capital project fund to get close to finishing those out.
This is to put the automatic measuring, whatever.
So the AMI meters, when we get all those in, we won't have the need for a meter reader to drive around and collect the data, essentially. The whole goal with that was to be able to reduce some of that labor for that person, and they could do other jobs that are needed. Whereas the automated meter, everything just kind of comes in to town hall, essentially with radio signals.
And what would normally take a full month to read 4,300 meters would probably take, depending on how fast they come in, it'd take a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. So it'll cut that completely. It'll cut all the labor out, physical labor pretty much, except for the issues you have in the field. But as far as getting the bills out and stuff, it'll be.
So when you say that it comes in, so we do not have to have anybody out there riding around with a wand.
Well,
It comes into the office here.
The way they told us, and correct me, Tammy, but it will come into the office.
And the only time if it's a misread or if it's not communicated.
Would be the only time that somebody would go out in the field to check and see what
So
was
the
going
ones that
on.
we have now, he goes by and we reads it with a wand. Or is it coming into the office now?
It comes in the office, he has to go out and manually the meters are switched over and type it into a handheld device. But, the ones that are automated, those come in to the office and they can form that.
Okay.
How many do we have now?
We're about halfway done. We're about halfway through the whole project.
So this would complete that transition over.
It'll be close.
It'll be close. Yeah, I think it was around, of course, now that price changes, but I think the last time I checked was just a month or so ago when we were in the middle of budget, and it was around 600,000 to complete the whole project.
So if it's all coming in to the office here, you said that it would reduce his time down to a week and a half. What's he doing? If all the meter reader, if all the information's coming into the office, what's that for? Then what's his week and a half?
So you
for?
have rereads, rechecks, say if he's done, his other duties would be to go out at that point on his downtime and replace cracked meter boxes, vermiculite meters for wintertime, do all the rechecks. When somebody calls in and says, hey, my water bill seems a little high this month, so we would send them back out to do a recheck, make sure the meter's functioning correctly. Burnt washers that could be leaking on, there's a multitude of work orders that come in that has to be completed on the downtime. So, and then of course, if all that was caught up, then I could definitely utilize him for something at my shop.
You
We-
also have if it's, if people mulch over it, or they park a car over it, or
Yeah.
something like that happens, we can't get readings.
Yeah, and that's happening a lot too. Used to, when we would manually do meters, they had to go out and actually flip the lid and find the meter. Well, now that it's automated, they go out to find the meter and they're like, well, which was good. We got GIS, we call this stuff's mapped, but you'll find, like Tammy said, you'll find they put stuff on top of them, and then we have to go to them and say, hey, you can't block the meter and leave it clear. There's all kind of issues, but they're minor issues as far as that goes, but just stuff like that happens regularly.
What is we've been installing this for what, a year, 2 years, 5 years?
Probably about 2.
2 to 3, yeah.
And what is the warranty on them, and then what is the life expectancy as proclaimed by the manufacturer?
Well, the life expectancy, the best I remember without going through the contract, is the same as like the regular manual meter. The guts and stuff are still the same. It's just electronic parts that's on top of it, what they call a minode or some people call them hot rod. You have to keep that stuff in stock. If something electrical goes bad, because all this stuff is waterproof and designed to stay in the ground. It's been tested. And, when we purchased this stuff, we checked with other municipalities that had it, like Montreat and Asheville and several others, to see what their problems was. And from what we understood, it was an occasional replacement of a hot rod or something that, that wouldn't read right, which is the cheapest part of the meter, which is good, but we have to keep that stuff in stock. But I think the actual, the warranty, I would have to go back and look, but usually you replace a meter every 10 to 15 years. It depends on where it's located in the system, because Some of them stay underwater, some of them stay under mud, some of them's dry and clean. It just depends.
I know when I was on board a long time ago, we started down this road and it was a fiasco.
It was, yeah, I agree. I was here then, so. That's it, unless there's some more questions, but,
I'm just noticing overall that the budget is right at 50% higher than last year.
For the water budget?
Well, when you look
No,
here,
that won't be right.
1.5 million is what you got, 1.504, and then you got 2.39.
Then we got water rate increases in this. We do that every year, which I'll get into when we get into revenues. That 1.3 million also is not a full year.
No, it didn't say 1.3, it said 1.5.
I think you're looking at the 2022
Exactly,
total
last
activity.
year.
So that's 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's the 2021, 2022 fiscal year. I'm not going to look.
Yeah, but I'm just, well, we're in this year. Okay, so I'm speaking of last year, and last year would be 22.
Correct.
Okay, and that's what I'm saying, it's 50% higher.
And Mayor, we still don't have audited financials for that, so that's gonna be our best guess at this point. So the audit has not been completed for fiscal year 21-22, so I cannot give you an actual number that's been audited. It doesn't exist right
And when will that be due?
now. That was due in December. So yeah, we're late, and we've been late, and we talked about that in March when we signed the extension plan at our council meeting. So
What's gonna be what kind of time limit are we gonna give them?
I don't understand what you're asking.
We don't have a time frame to say you can do this to us by
I mean,
July 1st, August 1st.
We can say that, but they're not gonna be able to complete that. They haven't done that yet. You know, we've been chewing on them every month and they can't get it done.
So I'm assuming then that we've got somebody in line for next year, but we won't be using these guys.
Well, we have them contracted for 3 years. That's a discussion we can have.
But not to have an audit completed within a year is pretty bizarre.
No, it's actually not that bizarre because it happens all over the state.
Part of it, I think, was on us. Right.
Part of it was on us. That's correct. We weren't ready when they got here the first day. And as I told y'all, I was not aware that if we weren't ready, then we get pushed to the back of the line.
Mm-mm.
Any more questions on water operations? Thank you, Jamie. Jamie, will you please come up and lead us through water admin, please?
Hopefully I can see, I didn't bring my glasses.
Can you see if I give you
Yeah,
my
no.
hard copy?
No, you're good. I can see. So salaries, I will mention that's a little lower than what we've actually spent year to date because we are allocating out some of the customer service because they do so many items for all the other departments now. You got stormwater that comes through there, fire inspection payments, parking tickets, Parks and Rec. Yeah, it's, so part of their salaries now is allocated to the finance department until we can get better reads on that to allocate it out to the other funds. Everything else is pretty standard. We can't change that as far as salaries goes. We didn't add a new position, so there's no added expense for that. I did look, Doug, and general fund went up by 0.7% for the retirement. Fire, law enforcement officers went up by 1%. We did add in money for this year's coming budget for employee continuing education and training. I will let the customer service team to take some training through the School of Government on utility billing and the procedures behind that and what we can and can't do. And that's where your travel per diem comes in that we hadn't had before. Other professional and technical services. That is our, I don't remember
What?
I'm sorry, where are you,
The
where are you?
9,000 on other professional and technical services. Don't remember what made up that one. The 45,000 for printing and binding service, that's our printing of our bills. I think the other professional services is, you remember?
I don't remember, that's why I just put a question mark there, I'll have to get that answer, I'm sorry.
The permit license fees and others, we have to pay $1.25 per person that goes onto our website to use that platform to either pay our bills or to pay their bills or whatever that is through that company. So that's why that's 15,000 for the upcoming year. Bank service charges and fees, it's what the bank charges for our central depository. Credit card processing fees is for people to use the online credit cards.
And that's just spread across the
Yeah.
budget, is that correct?
And actually with the credit card fee processing, that is sort of, they take it all in the water department now. So we'll have to figure out allocation for all the other departments when we get good data for a year for that. The 63,000 for technology and software license. In prior years, the software was all charged to the general fund for their yearly contracts. We are dividing out the water department's portion. I did add in 11,000 for smart meter service, and that allows customers to log in and see their usage in real time. They can set up alerts if they have a leak or something. If it says my water usage has went up for a 2-hour period, it can alert them that that's going on. We also have access to that, so it allows us to help detect the leaks. It just offers a lot of transparency to the customers, and I think for $11,000, it's a good service to offer. Communications is part of the phone service. Cell phones, we don't have any cell phones in the customer service department, so that would all just be part of the internet and phone service at town hall. Office supplies is just your general office supplies of paper, folders, pens. Janitorial is a part of the paper towels, all of those random things. Technology supplies and materials will be if we bought a new computer or computer screen or mouse or keyboard or any of those type of things. The lease and rental equipment is the copier lease that they have in the customer service department. We didn't budget anything for non-capital postage. Of course, that's for mailing out all of our bills and statements to the utility customers. 25,000 contingency. We can set up the contingency amount in each fund. Of course, that would come to the board and they would have to approve when we spend that contingency money on something that wasn't budgeted for in the line item. The debt principal and interest is,
That's all that stuff that we've had on the books for a long time.
yeah.
Sewer lines, water lines, it's been on the books for years.
Okay.
I don't understand all that. I mean, and especially since we only spent $31,000 this year.
Some of those payments may not have come due yet, Mr. Mayor.
Could you please let me know about those?
Be
please?
happy to
I'd
do
like
that.
to, because
Happy to show you the
that's
debt
a little bit, and
schedule.
also too, you know, that you've thrown a lot of stuff in there, said it's been on the books and stuff, but
And this is how we've normally done the budget since I've been here.
I mean, that seems kind of an odd thing.
Happy to
Just
talk
that
to
we
you.
we don't know about. You know,
Anytime you'd like to talk, we can
to
talk.
itemize that.
Sure.
If that could be itemized,
It could be. We've got a debt schedule and we can itemize that and put
yeah. if you
the
would
7 or
just-
8, 10 lines in there that show every single loan.
You can do that if you want to, and I just like to see it,
Sure.
because people ask me about these things and just wonder, you know, okay, what's this for?
You're welcome to
And
come by
it's,
anytime.
so if you'll give me a copy of that, please. Thank you.
I think, actually Courtney has it right. Do you have it with you?
Yeah,
Okay.
that 9,000 for the other professional services, collections taxes, and it's also Tyler related to those phone calls for the water bill, to let people know that they're gonna have cutoffs. I can make them a copy of this. If you want to see that.
You don't have to.
It also lists out in our prior financial statements, all of our debt payment, the loans and stuff. The auditors have to list that in our financials. So even if you went back to the 21, 22, the 2021.
2021.
Yeah. That should have our debt payments because we haven't took out any new loans in the water department. So it should list there.
So that audited statement will reflect that.
Yes, yeah. And they give details in the back. They have to do notes and it lists more details about any of your debt payments or any type of things that affect the debt.
Lots of times though, they can be very complicated to try to
Mhm.
figure out.
Yeah.
Tammy, I have a question,
Uh-huh.
and maybe Josh too, just general. So on the contingency, as I understand it, you said, so we put this in as a place marker, I guess.
Yeah.
But this 25,000 it's part of our operating budget, correct? But in order to spend any from the contingency, you have to come to the board to get approval. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, so the 25,000 would be for anything that's really unexpected in the water fund. And when we have to spend money out of that contingency, it comes to you as a budget amendment saying we won't spend the contingency on these items, and it has to be approved by the board.
So it's just I'm just trying to, it's just a place marker in case we have to spend
Yes,
something unexpected.
And we put that in the general fund too,
Okay,
just in
Mhm.
case.
Yeah.
We usually
if we don't spend it,
but
we come out ahead.
yes.
it just goes back into the fund balance, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank
So
you.
let me go back to this water ops budget, 2.39 million. Last year's budget was 2.2.
But that wasn't on the sheet.
No, it's not. So you have actuals on the sheet. You don't actually have the budget. That's correct.
And it looked like that on 21, that was 1 million.
Well, the budget was much more than that. That's the actual. And I'm happy to tell you.
It's
what
just
that
a little
is.
bit confusing though, Josh, whenever, we throw different figures around. If we've got an audited statement from 21, we should have that figure in there. If we don't have it for 22, I could understand.
Correct.
But 21 should be reflected on this, on the 21 column.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing we did last year, a fella came and went through all our debt service and gave us a really detailed report about how much would be rolling off every year for the next 10 years and what our tolerance is every year. And I don't know if it's too late for this budget season, but I found that really helpful. Because the mayor's right, it is confusing. But once I heard about that, then I felt a little more comfortable.
What else on water admin? We're gonna do golf. And I'm gonna do golf. Let's see, salaries, 135.3. No part-time, we've switched that part-time to, actually, contract labor, so that's why you don't see that part-time any longer. That's for the first week services, we'll see that down in a few minutes, a little bit lower here on the budget. Holiday pay, longevity, social security,
I'm sorry, what sheet are we looking
this is golf
at?
operations.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Retirement, your 401k or medical uniforms are 1,500. We're currently at 674, not currently as of April, 674. $500 for education and training. We haven't spent anything yet this year. Contract labor services, this is where your first ink services are. That's at 68.4. We've only done almost $25,000 with that. Now, the new number doesn't include the increase from first, which is, I think, $4 an hour, went from 11 to $15 an hour.
Do we anticipate using them more next year? I'm wondering, or is that we just haven't hit the season yet? So
I think it's kind of a combination of both. Councilman DeHay, they have 3 full-time people, and the rest of it is first ink. And that 68,400 is about the cost of a little over 2 employees, 40 hours a week, 52 weeks out of the year. So it's not a lot of employees we get from first ink to do all that work. That's the number that we would like to spend. Will we get to that number? I'm not sure. Contract maintenance, 19,000. That is for irrigation system and $7,500 for a tree removal. A couple of tree removals this year upcoming that we can't do ourselves. $1,500 for permits, licenses, and fees. Disposal fees at $1,300. That's for dumpsters. $21,700 is for electricity. Communication, $1,800. Water and sewer right at $1,000. Cell phone stipend, $500. R&M building, they asked for 20. I cut it to 15. That's, you just never know what may happen. That building, the golf ops building, really needs to be replaced and probably moved from the current location it's in. I think that's a discussion for a different day. You'll see some capital items when we get down a little bit farther that we don't have money to pay for that we need, but we just can't pay for it with our golf fund. There's not enough revenues to make that happen. R&M equipment, $20,000. We spent 14 this year so far. R&M vehicle at 800. Supplies and materials at 10 grand. Janitorial supplies at 15. Chemicals and chemical products. This is also something that has increased over the past couple of years. We think we're going to spend about $50,000 in the next year. Jerry will start spending some serious money on chemicals here soon for spring. Pre-emergent, all that stuff to put on the grass for weeds, bugs. So that 24,000 is going to spike up considerably here in the next month or two. Nothing for specially operated supplies. Lease rental equipment, $98,000. That is for our lease with John Deere for all the equipment. That is for the mowing equipment. All the mowers we use is all leased equipment. We don't buy that outright. We've historically been with Toro for a number of years. If you recall, I think it was last year, we had issues with Toro. They couldn't tell us when we could get the equipment, so we switched to John Deere. And I think it was a little bit more expensive, but Toro could give us no estimate on when we could get equipment. So fuel at 20, they wanted 22, I cut it to 15. And here's the capital that I don't have budgeted that they asked for. A new pump for $12,000, paving cart pass at $62,000. The bridge at number 5, I've got a guess in here of $30,000. That bridge is in need of some TLC. It's been there for a long time, and it's getting a little scary. I think just the water's eating away at the footer, at the abutments, and it just needs to be looked at and probably replaced at some point in the future. But I have not budgeted any of that capital in this budget.
How much did the bridge at 10 end up costing?
The new one we just did for FEMA is about 21,000 roughly.
Councilmember Hay, that was not constructed to the level that it will be needed for repair the bridge.
Because that one's foot only. No, that's correct.
It really, they didn't have footers, it's just a different method. They basically put some stacks of brick roof in a hole, and the other bridge is up taller, and the banks are deeper, better. So that's probably the reason. Yes.
That is it for operations. Questions? Do the pro shop. Salaries, we have 66,600, part-time 57,800, holiday 3,400, longevity 800, social security 9,900, state retirement 13,300, 401k 3,600, 7,900 for med and life, professional certifications and dues $200, cleaning services $250, contract maintenance we're not anticipating spending anything this year. Permits, licenses, and fees at $50. That is for Carolinas Golf Association. Credit card processing fees at $21,000. We get charged for using the credit card, and we use a lot of credit cards at the golf course. Technology and software license at $1,000. That's for Adobe. Electricity at $13,000. Gas $3,300. Refuse disposal $5,600. Communication $3,200. Cell phone stipend at $500. That is not something that we've done in the past, but I'm asking employees to use their personal phones. We need to pay them for that. We don't need to have them using their personal phones for business and not reimburse them for that. So that's what that is.
Josh, what's the overlap of the golf operations and the pro shop there? I mean, is that employees that are doing both? Or
No,
is this-
so your golf operations are gonna be everyone that does the work on the course. Mowing, any kind of drainage issues, fixing things on the course itself.
Yeah.
The pro shop is Brent, who runs the golf course,
Mhm.
and then part-time people.
Okay.
Essentially, they're standing in there, taking people's money, telling them about the
Okay.
course, that's what they do. And they do cart washing, washing the cars, and the carts up after. Water and sewer, 1,600, R&M building at 9,000, so this 9,000 is for some repairs at the Green Tea Grill. So it's the Green Tea Grill maintenance. We got some drywall repairs at the pro shop as well. Some carpet, paint, and cart guard siding repair. A lot of just different things that we're sprucing up there. 3,500 at equipment. This is $500 for the hood cleaning and then repairs at Green Tea Grill, whether that be we're constantly doing things to ice machines and gas powered stoves and coolers.
Can you hover over the building one again?
The building one again. Sure.
Thank you.
We don't have anything for R&M vehicle. We don't really have any vehicles in this department, minus the golf carts. Supplies and materials, nothing. Office supplies, we've got at $750. Janitorial supplies, we have at $3,500. So the way our contract's written with the Green Tea Grill, we pay for most of the janitorial supplies at that facility. So all your toilet paper, paper towels, anything that you're using in there, we're paid for that. $1,700 for a laptop, a new laptop. $3,000 for scorecards, pencils, cleaning spray for carts. Purchases for resale, this is $30,000. This is all the merchandise that Brent purchases and resells, from hats, shirts, golf balls, tees, gloves, all that merchandise you get up in the pro shop. Safety and appliance at $500. This is for fire extinguisher certification, renewal of those every year. Miscellaneous expense we have at $500. Capital outlay, we have nothing for this department. We have debt principal for this department for the golf carts, That is about $58,000 roughly when you combine the debt and the interest. And we've got one more year after this budget that we're talking about right now, and that will be done. So at that point, then we could take on some more debt in the golf fund. Because you have that excess 58,000, whereas we don't have that excess now.
Do you remember what the capital outlay was from 2022?
This hasn't been paid yet, the golf cart payment, that's the end of the year, so that will be, this is what that is.
And I'm talking about the 342,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, that would have been the loan amount for the golf carts,
Oh,
original loan amount, because we financed that. So we financed that and then sold our old golf carts, which ended up taking that down some.
Yeah.
About half. Any questions on golf pro shop?
Mayor, really quick on the water jet payment, we have 170,979 due in June. So that's why it wasn't reflected in that year-to-date total.
That figure was
170,979.
Tammy, do you mind coming up and walking through revenues with me? No, I mean, I can just be back up. Okay, so this is our big sheet of revenues, right? This is where we see all the good stuff. I've highlighted a few things here I think that are worthy of, I guess, at least drawing attention to. I would say, the ad valorem taxes that we are basing off of our current tax rate, of course, are gonna be, they went up since last year. We've got new houses that have been built, so, we're gonna have more ad valorem taxes that come in. Not a considerable amount more, but it looks like about 170,000-ish, a little bit short of that. The motor vehicle tax at 257, that's also a little bit more than the previous year as well. Interest on motor vehicle, on ad valorem taxes at 10.5. Don't have anything for rental tax. Mr. Mayor, this is one thing I think you had mentioned maybe last week. This is $45,000 for the additional motor vehicle tax. I think that helps pay for that transit bus.
$5.
Beer and wine license at 2,000. Local sales and use, we think that we're gonna be at about 2.5 million for the upcoming year. Now, the actual is only 1.4. The thing to keep in mind about sales and use tax is it's 3 months behind. So even when you get to June, you're not getting June's numbers. So you're having to estimate before you ever get the audit done, because you don't have those numbers in. Those numbers lag 3 months behind for everybody.
how do we estimate that, June?
Well, what I typically do is just try to guess, based on what we've taken in, and divide that out by the months and make a best guess. And we're usually pretty close.
And they also, the League of Municipalities also releases what they believe the trend is going to be, and looking at the current year and the past years, those increases.
How much of the local sales tax do we get?
Well, it depends, it's allocated by your tax, is it the population or tax?
I think it's what you're seeing,
Group.
isn't it?
So Buncombe County actually gets it all, and it's allocated out to all the municipalities within Buncombe County based on either the population or the ad valorem. And I can't remember which one. I'm pretty sure it's ad valorem, because I think that's the majority of the municipalities use that. So that's that formula, and I don't know what that number is, because we could probably find it somewhere.
I'm just curious
Yeah.
how much their county's getting versus we're getting versus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we pay in, everything we pay in for sales tax on purchases we make, because we're required by law to pay tax on our purchases. We're not tax exempt. We have to apply for a refund from the state at the end of the year to get all that money back. So it's just like a vicious cycle, which that doesn't read into that number, because it's just an AR balance that's sitting out there all year, and we request that refund, and it takes them a while to get that. But as far as that, our percentage, I could find that for you if you want.
if you would, please, because it'd be
Okay.
very important for us to know, is it based on ad valorem,
Yeah.
based on sales tax, exactly what
Yeah,
how it comes
okay.
out.
I'm pretty sure it's ad valorem, but as far as how, I think Buncombe County has to take all the municipalities as a whole and then allocate it our percentage of ad valorem for the whole county. So I'll check on that.
Beer, wine, excise tax, 35,000. Solid waste disposal tax, 6,500. Electric utility franchise, or sales tax, excuse me, 480,000. Telecommunication, 46,000. Video programming, 100,000. Pop natural gas, 21.5. ABC revenues, I highlighted this one. This is one that has also increased over last year. We're thinking, speaking with the ABC folks, we're going to be getting about $280,000. And that's just for the town. The police department gets a separate amount. So that's up 80 grand from last year. We think so it's going to be pretty close.
But we still have money to come in this.
We still have money to come in this year, so
Yeah.
that's we're still waiting.
Yeah.
$800 for court fees for police. ABC law enforcement revenues, that's 22.5. Sidewalk encroachment fee of $1,000, $6,000 for solid waste collection and disposal services, $60,000 for rental income. That's the rent we receive from Carver, Art in the Afternoon, and Green Tea Grill. Here's another one I think that has grown considerably is our interest income. Any of you that have any money in banks or special places, you know that the interest rate has went up considerably. We went from having $5,000 a year in interest income, and we think we're going to have about $257,000 just in the general fund, based on what we have in the bank and the interest rates. So
And
that's
that interest rate,
is
rate.
almost 5%, right?
And that's based on the past couple of months, what our interest rate has been coming in from NCC&T.
speaking of interest rates and stuff, have we moved towards the bank? Are we still dealing with Truist
We are right now, but that's coming.
in timeframe that you could give?
Hopefully, when we get through this budget, we'll be ready to do that.
There's a lot of moving parts when you switch banks.
Oh my
because,
gosh, it's a nightmare.
everything is so set up, so that will be probably a huge task when we do take that on if we switch banks.
Special event staff, equipment revenue, 9,000. Customer participation at 500. Contributions and donations at 3,500. Miscellaneous income at 15,000. Debt proceeds, 202. So the debt proceeds at 202,000 is the loan for the police vehicles. So on the police expense side, you have the 202 for the expense, and you have the debt proceed on this side for the revenue that cancels those out. $6,000 for parking violations, $10,000 for special event permits, facility rental Gray Eagle, we think that's gonna be around 2,000, youth sports, 50,000. $7,000 for special events. Program revenue, summer camp, $11,000, 4,500 for program revenue for the garden. Rec park revenue, 1,500. Contributions and donations, 2,000. $3,000 for rental, athletic fields, pools. Pool admissions, we think that's gonna be around $60,000 this year with our increase in our fees. Non-taxable sales at 500, $15,000 for pool concessions. So we buy ice creams, drinks, cakes, all that, and resell those. $20,000 for grant revenue from the state.
What is that?
What is that state grant revenue, Tammy?
Can you,
I can scroll over here. Yes.
11.
Looks
Oh,
like it.
so they get,
Thank you, Josh.
the Department of Aging receives, they reimburse us, is that 10,000? 11,000 per year. We have to submit to them what we offer to the elderly at the Lakeview Center, all the services, and then they reimburse us 11,000 per year for that.
Does that mean, is there any set formula for that? Because I mean, obviously it costs us more than that to do. the
No,
programs.
that's just how much that, it's sort of, it's a grant, so that's all that they allocate per year. That's all they'll give us.
And the other 9,000 is something different, or?
We are getting money for, they're also reimbursing us a certain amount for the meal delivery service, which that sort of came about with the ARPA funds. So I think that they're using some of their ARPA funds to reimburse us, and that's a set amount too, and we can't get additional money
Where was that located?
in that grant revenue.
So we've got two factors in there.
Mhm, yes,
We've got a meal.
you have the meal delivery service that we offer, and then the.
Our facility, salaries.
Yes, yes, our salaries, activities, everything that we offer.
Permits, ABC, $600. Facility rental at Lakeview, 30,000. Facility rental downstairs at Lakeview, 5,000. Lake Tomahawk, 4,000. Active aging, $1,000. $2,000 for facility rental from Veterans Park. Transfers in, so this $1,344,500. That is, that's all transfers in from fund balance, okay? If you recall, all the ARPA money we got rolled into excess fund balance. In this line, you're gonna see $744,500 in ARPA projects that are all Parks and Rec related that y'all voted on a number of weeks ago. And the other $600,000 is a fund balance appropriation to help balance the budget, which gives you the 123,445.
So the 600 is basically we're taking it out of savings. They got to try to balance the budget.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, no transfers in. And lastly, under general fund revenue, you have a waste reduction fee of $115,200. We would like to start charging folks a waste reduction fee of $2 per pickup. We base that number off of 4,800 pickups. If you times that by 12, that's where you get your 115,200 from. This would help offset the cost of the new leaf service we're proposing, as well as offsetting just general sanitation costs and waste reduction costs.
It's $2 per month.
That's correct.
Times
$24 a year.
times roughly 5,000. That's what we have roughly. 4,849. Let's just say 5,000.
If you say five, that number will be bigger.
To make it just a little bit
Yeah.
easier to see. And when we look at the amount of money that is being spent on sanitation, when the previous boards, we've been ahead and decided to go with that, that was an excellent idea because as you've shown, it's $22 you're saying is about what Waste Pro or the others are charging. And if we do 17, that's 5,000. We're saving $300,000 a year.
Yeah, that's right. That's correct.
And so therefore sanitation has done a good job there again. The public's got to understand that we've got to pay for this.
That's right.
And so we need to put some fees on that.
Well, that's right, Mr. Mayor. And what else you think about is, the tipping fees go up every year too. The county does that every year. So it's an endless battle trying to combat that.
It's more expensive this year than it was last year.
And that's going to be the norm probably every year, every year after.
I will mention if we do pass the waste reduction fee, we would have to set up a utility fund for recycling, because that money can only be spent on those services, and that would be considered a utility at that point. So we would have to account for all of their activities in a separate fund.
So you're saying now sanitation is not considered?
It's just a separate department because the general fund absorbs all the cost. But if we start charging a fee specific to waste pickup, those type items, it works the same way as stormwater or the water bill. It has to be accounted for separately.
Which other municipalities in the county have their own waste or sanitation departments?
Everybody does.
Yeah.
And how do they charge fees?
Some of them do, some of them don't. Asheville, of course, does. Marion does, which is of course not in Buncombe.
Hendersonville does.
Hendersonville does, which of course is not in Buncombe. Weaverville charges a small fee. Woodfin does not charge, and Biltmore Forest does not charge, to my knowledge. No, and Montgomery does.
And based on no facts, I'll just say I think our service is head and shoulders above Waste Pro, just from what I've heard. It's dependable and they do a really good job here.
What do you think? You got Waste Pro?
I do. Black Mountain's trash pickup is great.
Yeah.
So 10, 9, so the total revenue that we're projecting for the general fund is 10,952,100. That is up. Last year was about 9.5 million. So, with that being said, if you back out the ARPA money, then you're a little over $10 million in revenue.
So where did you get the 9.5?
No, that's just in my head, Mr. Mayor, from last year's general fund
I'm just trying to,
projections.
just trying to look at the facts, trying to get the numbers down.
And that's
The
in
numbers get thrown around all over the place and
That's correct. They did.
it is hard to follow.
It absolutely is. No, budget is not easy to follow. I agree, 100%.
So last year we budgeted roughly 9.5,
For revenues, that's correct.
and this year, if you back out ARPA, we're at
10.2 roughly. Now that 10.2, you got to think, you got to count for general fund. We're not talking about any other fund. The general fund, you've got 5% cost of living that's in there. You also have new employees that are in there right now.
How many?
Currently, you have, in the general fund, you have 3 full-time that are new, and you have 2 part-time that go to full-time, that are existing part-time positions, and 1 new part-time. And then you also have to consider the fact that this year in January, we instituted our pay stub, which was $360,000 in an increase in salaries. So you gotta throw that into this year as well.
What is the 5% COLA total?
Across all funds, $345,000. Just for general fund, I'm gonna say it's probably around 280, 290.
And when you look at last year's budget, and then you say 99.5, of that amount, how much was allocated from unassigned funds?
$604,000.
How much?
604, which we will not end up spending. And the thing, we use fund balance to balance the budget, and as I told y'all last year, there are not many times when you ever actually use all that money, because, you have vacancies throughout the year in every department, so you hardly ever spend all the salary money. There's other issues where you can't get equipment, where you may not spend all the money. We are, at least every year since I've been here, revenues have exceeded expenditures. And that's partly because revenues have come in stronger because we're trying to budget conservatively, and expenditures come in less. Just for the simple fact that I just said, we are
So we've been
short-staffed.
spending more money.
Well, no, we have been spending money,
We've been spending.
Sure. but we've still not spent what we projected to spend.
What are you projecting of the, if you say 604,000 was in last year's budget coming from fund balance, what are you looking at the fund balance for this year of unused, of the positions that are open in Jamie's department? Or how much money is the general, well, not general fund, but the unassigned fund balance
For this current year,
going to get at the end of this year of unused funds?
this current year we're in right now,
Correct.
I don't think we'll use that 604,000. I don't know if we'll use any of it, to be honest.
And it's sort of hard to tell until we get all of the expenses in and see where we're at of what needs to be actually transferred out of the fund balance in to offset. Because if we've had unexpected things that we didn't budget for, those would have came to the board as a budget amendment. We had to approve the allocation from not the allocation, but the transfer from the fund balance into the general fund, the water fund, or wherever it may be when we're doing any of those appropriations. It's approved by the board.
So if you recall, in January, when we did that pay study, when we implemented the pay study, we talked about doing a budget amendment, but we did not do it because we thought there was gonna be enough money. And I think there ended up was being enough money from the excess in vacancies to afford that hit of half of 360, because it was just half a year.
So basically, if we end up looking at that, the 604,000 that you had, you're saying then that we had another 180,000 in revenue, so that it paid for that pay study.
That's right. From excess vacancies. Correct.
And your expenses are also less because we've not been able to get items that we had budgeted for in the prior, or in this year. We're still waiting to send it to us, and the departments I know have a hard time getting things that they need. And when they do, the price is really expensive. It's went up quite a bit. You can probably estimate about twice as much as in prior years for all of our items that we buy, because the amounts are just going up crazily.
That's your general fund. We'll, if you want to, we'll run through the other ones. The general fund's the big one. The fire fund. So their top two lines are going to be our county sale and ad valorem taxes. If you look at both of those, it's almost, I'm gonna do math in my head, almost $1.6 million just in county sales tax and ad valorem. Payment in lieu of taxes, $8,500, $20,000 for fire district insurance distribution, inspection fees. We're low right now. We hope to be at $25,000 next year. Interest income at $15,000. That's something that's also increased, as I mentioned earlier when we talked about interest income. That's something that we've just seen balloon, which we are excited about, and I hope it keeps ballooning for us. $1,000 for staff special event equipment, $1,000 for a fire violation fee, $2,500 for contributions and donations, $6,000 for miscellaneous income. Your transfer in is from general fund to balance the fire department budget. So since this is a split fund with county and municipal, the county is putting in $1.6 million, and they are responsible for about 40% of our call volume. Technically, we should be putting in more than 1.2 million. I think the county would love it if we did. However, they are okay with us making an attempt to do the best we can, as long as we're getting there, which is what we're trying to do here. I just don't know that we can afford to put in another $400,000 into this budget. I've already told you, we know where we stand, so there's just not an ability to do that. I think the other issue we have with the county is, we can go to them and ask them for a fire district tax rate increase. However, they're going to want us to be able to do something as well. So it's hard to go to them and ask for tax increases when we don't do tax increases, or we don't have budgets to try and make that meet. So we tried that once. Since I've been here, we were unsuccessful. Next, you have your development services fund or your planning fund. Now, this is split out because we have to account for building inspection revenue in this department and this department only. It cannot be split in other departments. Interest income we have at $5,000. We have permits and fees at $275,000. Inspection fees at $75,000. Homeowner recovery fund at $100,000, and the transfer in the balance. This one is $438,100, which gives you $793,200.
What's the difference between when you get a permit? Because when you get a permit, you pay the set fee, and then you come out and they check it. But then on the inspection fee,
How many times we got to come back and do rechecks, things of that nature? Just quite often we come more than once to look at your projects. I didn't
so
know.
did we lose anything this past year because of the fact that we had to use
We
Buncombe
did.
County?
So you're gonna see a little bit of a revenue shortfall from this year because we've had to use the county some, which was just inevitable that we had to do that. So we are gonna see not as quite
When
as
did we
much.
use them? What was that time frame?
Just in here, you remember how long we used them?
3 or 4 months, but, not only did we lose, we had to pay for the services, we also think there was a large permits issued under them that we did not put that revenue, including a Highland Farms project. So we took
Wow.
a couple of hits for that period of time.
So 3 to 4 months and was that fall?
It was.
Last summer?
into Early fall.
It was early fall,
Summer and early.
early summer.
You know, at that point, we were almost ready to call the county and say, can you do them? Because we can't, and there was no one coming to the table. There was no one interested. And I think it's just one of those things that everybody's struggling with right now is trying to find the employees with the skills to do work. And being able
Glad
to
we
pay
got
them.
someone.
Technology fee, this is a $15,000, it's a very small, individual budget. That's the technology fee we get charged on. That's on permits, correct?
Building inspection.
Building inspections, we get a technology fee that we can use for technology
Just-
type
Just
expenses,
in that.
just in that department.
Mhm, yes.
Question on technology. As you go look back through, not the revenue side, but on the expenditure side, we're spending $400,000 if we look at all our technology. Is that that'd be a reasonable figure as to what we're probably spending as a town on technology and computers?
Without looking at that closely, I wouldn't want to say yes or no. I know the IT services budget alone was $150,000. I'd go back and look at that.
Have we ever had anybody that we contract out of? We contract out with a lot of different groups for planning, and for stormwater to come in to look. Have we ever had any group to come in and look at our whole program and say, Town of Black Mountain, you're spending $400,000?
Not that I know of.
We think that it would be good if you looked at doing ABCD.
Not that I know of. Not at least, not under me. No, we may have done it in the past, but I'm not aware of anything.
I just think that'd be a good thing, Christian. When we're spending almost close to half $500,000 to let somebody in to see what duplications that we have, that we may be able to go ahead and consolidate and save some money.
No, you and I talked about at least, potentially having our own IT at one time. Just,
Well, I'm not even saying we
I know.
hire somebody.
No, I know you're not, but I'm just gonna give you some food for thought. The county itself, their IT department has 67 employees. But no, I wrote that down. This is our PAL bill. The next one, 255, and then interest income we think is going to be at 35,000 at 290 total. So just to go back, we get about $255,000 from the state for PAL bill. That is for streets. And we think the interest income this year, we're already at 22,000, so we think we're going to be at 35,000 next year with no problem.
So unless we go ahead and, is that done as a percentage of the cost of a gallon of gas, or is that done as a set fee? So many cents per gallon?
Don't know the answer to that.
The state percentage, I believe, through the state, and they allocate a certain percentage to municipalities based on your grouping of size and, under so much in population.
Gas tax percentage based on the size of the municipality, population.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to come up with, because if it was just a set fee,
mhm.
if you see when you get your gas, there's like 48.7
Yeah.
cents per gallon. If it was part of that, then the only way we're ever gonna go ahead and get any more money out of Power Bill is to be able to have more gas stations
Yeah,
or people
no,
pump more gas.
yeah, I don't,
If it's a percentage,
yeah.
And therefore, since the cost of living has gone up and we've got inflation, that figure you would think should be a little higher. I'm not saying it's hundreds of thousands of dollars higher, but I'm saying that figure should be higher.
I know the state had looked, they had wanted to increase the amount going to municipalities 3 years ago or so, and it was scheduled to happen, and then COVID hit. And it sort of shut it all down, and they've not ever went back and revisited that increase that they had said they were going to do at that point. Because I can't remember what that increase was, but I know that they had.
I mean, basically, it looks like that we're not gonna ever get really that
No.
much more money.
No,
More than likely not.
I mean, we may get a few, $5, $10,
Yeah.
$15,000, but
not unless the state goes and says, okay, we're going to
we'll never
implement
get the amount of
change.
money that we need, that Jamie's allocating for doing the additional 300,000 for paving.
You know, the state's talked about a few times, you know, with the electric vehicles being more popular, doing potentially VMTs or vehicle miles traveled. I don't know how that will work. I guess you'll, you know, as you do your inspections every year, I guess that's how they'll calculate it. And I don't know if that is even something that will be successful, but I know they've had a couple pilot projects with folks doing that.
I think other states, there are some other states that do that, but penalizes the commuters
Yes, it does.
really
Big time.
tough. Yeah.
What is this one? This is the forfeiture.
I
I guess if I go over to the left, I bet I can find out. What do you think? PD and state, federal drug forfeiture, we've had some money in that in the past. We haven't done a lot of forfeitures in the past year or two and don't anticipate doing a lot. If we do get something that comes in good, then of course we'll do a budget amendment that to recognize the revenue.
And it usually takes, which is,
But what I don't want to do is budget a $20,000 number, knowing that we may or may not get an arrest worth $20,000.
doesn't it take a couple of years to process through before you're paid?
Yeah, that's to go through the court system, and it can take anywhere from a year to 3 years, depending on how big the case is. So that's, you know, something that we don't necessarily budget for, because we don't know what's gonna happen. But
Yeah, we had a windfall one time about 8, 9 years ago up on this way. About $250,000 that we ended up.
We need to do more of those.
But-
this is, if we get staffing approved, that I can move someone into narcotics that is strictly looking at that, and he's working with the feds, and that he can hopefully make some real headway in some of these drug overdoses and different things that we're having.
Mayor, I think if you look at the 21 totals, I think that's where we finally got part of that payment for that windfall you were speaking of, and they got in the 19,000.
No, this thing was, it's like. it's
But we only get
$250,000.
yeah,
I
we
think
only
it
get a
was long
portion
time
of it.
ago.
Yeah,
This I remember Sean getting, I think, when he was here.
yeah, and he had told me it was from a larger
Yeah.
drug bust from years ago.
$22,000 is the PD community outreach budget. That is really donations that we're taking in for, you know, golf tournament, other donations throughout the year. And all that money gets put back into the community with our Christmas program and our meal program with those that are in need. Penalty fines and forfeitures locally collected, we think that's gonna be at around $3,000.
And that's a new thing we have to budget for. The state changed the requirements because that's pretty much late list fees from taxes where people don't pay them and it goes right back out to the schools, but we have to budget for it now, so. Which is a little crazy since it's not even our money and we don't get to keep any of it.
There's nothing in the American Rescue Plan fund.
Where did the other 500,000 go to then? Is it just in unassigned fund balance?
Yeah, everything's just rolled into unassigned fund balance. That's right. Let's see. What's this next one? Next one is general fund capital reserve. I don't have any money set to go in there this year. System development fee capital reserve. That's one, you know, that we get. I don't have any money in that this year either. that's something that we did this a number of years ago where we were no longer able to charge impact fees and things of that nature with our water fund and sewer funds. We had to have someone come in and do an analysis for us, and we are able to charge what the legislature allows legally called a system development fee. So essentially, folks are paying for their capacity, adding themselves to the water system. That fee, it's different for whether it's a single family home or different types of businesses. We have a massive spreadsheet that we use to calculate that. That was all part of that study we had completed, I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago now, by McGill and Associates. We don't typically budget for that. We don't know what that looks like. In the past, it's like last year we got around $300-some thousand. So when I mentioned earlier to you about transferring some of that money out of the system development fee capital reserve fund into the AMI capital project fund for the meters, that is an allowable expense to use that money for. So that money is an allowable expense for meters, typically line sizing upgrades, capacity upgrades, those sort of things. You can't just go out and buy vehicles with it or anything that you just want to. It is restricted to some extent.
And you'll probably see you should see a budget amendment the next board meeting where we're transferring funds from the water department into that system development fee. That's the collections that we've had so far, because that has to be transferred from the water department into that fund.
Next is the water fund revenue. We're almost finished. Permits and fees, we think we're going to be at around $2,000. Disconnect, reconnect administrative fee at $35,000. MSD billing and collection fees at $100,500. Water tap fees at $75,000. System development fee, I didn't put anything in there, just like we were talking about a minute ago. Water special bond fee at $130,000. $5,000 for paving cut and repair revenue. Water sales, we think we're going to be at $2,035,000 in the upcoming year. Now that does include a water rate increase, and you're going to ask me how much. This year we've done it a little bit differently. In the past, we've just done a rate increase across the board. This year we're doing a rate increase inside, which is less than the rate increase we're doing on the outside customers.
You're talking about inside the city limits?
Yes, sir. Reason we're doing it that way, we had an analysis done by Withers and Ravenel last year about our water fund. And that's where they did the water fund analysis as far as debt goes, as far as your rate structure goes, and what you need to be charging to make sure that you are getting your debt paid for. That's what we used for these numbers.
How do we compare to Biltmore Bars, to Weaverville with them?
Can get you those answers, but I'm not sure. I will tell you, since I've been here, going on 5 years, we've increased the water rates every single year. Water fund is a business fund that is paid for by the users. We don't transfer any money into this fund from general fund. That is frowned upon. So everything that's done in the water fund comes essentially from the fees that we get. Water, let's see, interest income, we think we're going to be at $128,000 next year by the end of the year. $2,000 for customer participation, return payment fee, $100, $50,000 for late fees, $1,500 for miscellaneous income. I've got a $300,000 transfer in here, and that must be from the system development fee money. What is that $300,000?
But that's what you were talking about, that you're gonna be using that for the new water lines.
That's correct.
Will
I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. Tell myself.
When you add those things in there all up, you come up to, you're within $3,000 to $4,000 of the exactly what the Jamie presented earlier as the expenditures for
Yeah.
both the
That's right.
water administration
That's right.
and on the total water fund.
That's correct.
$3,000 difference could be math.
Is that?
I've got to figure out what
appropriation
this is,
from-
y'all. I apologize. I don't know what that
Is that
is.
the appropriation from fund balance
No,
to
I don't
balance it?
think- I don't think so. I'll get back to you. Sorry about that. Stormwater fund. Permits and fees, we think we're
So
gonna
if you
be,
look back over here, you had $300,000 in capital outlay for lines. Is that what that was for then? That's what Jamie presented in water operations.
it could be, Mr. Mayor, but
Okay, well then just look at that.
I'm gonna look at that. I don't feel comfortable with that number. Stormwater fund, 1750 for permits and fees, $2,500 for plan review fees. Interest income, we believe is gonna be at 21,350, and the stormwater fee brings us 356,200, what we're anticipating. Now, I think that number could be larger if more folks are paying, and as we increase in population. Now, I can think of 3 subdivisions right now that have 40 units apiece in them, I think, so that's gonna be 120 houses. So that number is gonna consistently go up for the future.
Our rate of growth is about 110, 125 per year.
Yeah. 381,800. That is actually down from previous years. I do not have a transfer in this year from general fund to stock money back into the capital reserve for stormwater fund. And then lastly is your golf fund. We think our green fees this year are gonna be at 470. Through April, we were almost at 400,000. I don't think that's unreasonable.
And there was also an increase.
And we also increased the rates. Membership fee revenue, we think we're gonna be at around 60. That's gone down over the past couple of years. $240,000 for golf cart fees, $40,000 for pro shop sales, $4,800 for rental income. That is, of course, for the Green Tea Grill. 38.4, that's a transfer in to balance this. But actually, we have a fund balance in golf, so that's not gonna hit general fund. Remember last year, we were to the good, about 70 grand.
We're not projecting that again this year.
I'm not sure. Maybe. So we may not have to do any of that transferring at all. Just, it depends. And usually we try not to do those until the end of the year, just because we may have more revenues than we've accounted for, so we don't have to use all that money.
Well, Brent feels like we're making money for the first time in a long time.
Well,
You
just
are
so you're
correct.
aware, we're not allocating any salaries or anything like that to the golf fund because it can't. There would be no reason because we'd have to transfer money in to cover those allocations to pay for those things.
So your total budget, at least right now, with revenues for every fund is $19,026,700. Last year was almost 17 million, 16,691,000.
Last year was what?
Last year was 16,691,000 is what the total budget was last year.
And this year includes 1.3 in ARPA, right?
Well, it includes 1.3 in ARPA and fund balance appropriation both. And then you've got all your other increases in revenues, right? From tax increases to interest income increases. I mean, just everything that we've got here that we think where it's gonna land. That's where we land on that.
Yeah.
So those are your revenues. We went through expenditures. We still have our CIP to go through as well. We're right at 10 o'clock. I would like to, if folks are okay, next week, to do the CIP talk and then also talk to y'all about what you want to, how you want to balance. So be thinking about that if you haven't already. And
I had asked, Samantha to go ahead and put this picture in here, and I wanted to, since we're talking about budget. This is a picture of the parking lot, which is down below the railroad tracks. And I mentioned to Josh, and he had reached out to the people that owned the old Truist Bank. And just to see about what the possibility would be of going ahead and trying to purchase 20 feet there. If we could get 20 feet there, we could add 15 parking spaces on that south side of that parking lot. I would hope the board would let the town manager go ahead and pursue that, just to see if that's a possibility of going ahead and purchasing that. Not only would we get 15 extra parking spaces, but if nothing ever worked out, with getting parking somewhere else in town, that would provide us enough space to do what Blowing Rock has done, and that's with a single deck, which would then add another 50 spaces. So we're only looking at about 20 feet here that would give us the opportunity for us to think about that down the road. So it's going to be up to Josh to, bring that to y'all, just to see if you wouldn't mind paying the money, because what do you think that would cost? 10,000 to get that appraised?
I don't know that, I think it's cheaper than that. Appraisal probably, maybe, yeah, it would be cheaper than that, 3,000 or 4,000. So what you've got in your packet, as Mayor Sobel said, I've already reached out to those folks. Now, she gave me some marching orders. If y'all, and it's up to y'all, if y'all want to pursue that, but we need to do a proposed acquisition plan, an appraisal, and an offer letter to get to them. Of course, I'm gonna say, if y'all are interested, you do the appraisal first, see what it looks like. What's
So
the
maybe you
cost?
can bring that up at the meeting Monday night, June,
Have to.
Bring what I want to say,
to see if y'all would agree to this.
to get appraisal or to actually make the purchase.
To get the appraisal and get the survey, and then be able to approach them and see where we are, see what they would put on.
One of the things I'm gonna be wondering is, are people parking down there currently? Is that lot ever full currently? The existing lot, before we think about the need to expand it?
Just about every time I've been by there, it is, and when you got the,
Well, I'm just
Right
saying, we
ahead.
need some numbers, because I'm not sure it is used all that much.
So what we need from us from today is,
I don't need any, if you want me to do any of this start today, then of course, I think I'm gonna have to have some head nods. But if you wanna wait till the June meeting, it can be an agenda item. You can give me, marching orders that way. Doesn't matter to me.
did Chris seem open to it?
Oh, yeah, well, all I have is what you've got in front of you,
Okay.
just that email. I didn't talk to anyone on the phone. I reached out to them with an email, as you can see, and then she responded back actually pretty quickly with her response. So it wasn't no, it was, give us the stuff and we'll talk about it.
I'm fine to talk about that in June.
We'll have it as, we'll make it happen in June. We'll talk.
And Josh, maybe you just put it for Paul, for answer. I know this may be mentioned. So because we don't get any more capital funding, we have to have money for maintenance, and that's just an average of paying that cost will rise. I just want to make you aware that like the lease, Josh had mentioned subdivisions or that 40 houses going in here and there, that's going in all over the place. Their engineers, developers, got to meet with us, staff, and all the department heads, plus inspectors and everything. And they asked if we build this to your specs, we can take it over. Well, because it's in town, of course, we want to build our specs, especially our roads, water systems, for public safety, and the whole nine yards. But just because they build it to the spec, just food for thought, may come, for you to take it over, that don't mean you have to take it over. And considering the situation we're in financially or whatever it may be at the time, you can put it off until we're in a better state to take those, because when you take them over, you're also taking on, more snow pushing, equipment, the paving, when it comes around, you're taking on more debt and not getting more money. So I just wanted that to be included in the thought, that that's something to think about. Regardless, we gotta maintain it, whatever the decision is, but I just want you to know that, you can always put it on the HOA. I live on private road, all of us, our neighbors, we maintain the road, we have fun with the thinking, so you can take responsibility on that for it there, so you just need to, it's just a thought.
Anybody got anything else?
Nope.
If not, meeting adjourned.
Yes.